we talk all about value. I think it's important to define what it is, and it's actually easier to define what it's not out the gates, right? So value is not any of these things, right? And I'd love to hear your perspective on this as well, Andrew. It's not product usage. It's not utilization. It's not CSM engagement or sentiment or support tickets. It's not your internal health score, right? Value is in the eye of the beholder, and it can only be described through your executive buyers. So we need to look at value from the outside in, not the inside out. How do your customers perceive it, not how do your CSMs or even you perceive it, because that's inherently a little bit biased. And so this is the framework that Andrew's talking about that we built together, is a value framework that articulates 3 dimensions of value. At the very top are desired outcomes, right? What are the core reasons why an executive buyer is looking to purchase your solution? We need to document those and make sure we are aligned on what that means for your organization. There are then business workflows that your solution will support, right? To help make faster, better, stronger, to help your executive buyers achieve those outcomes. And what's the foundation pillar to all this are the core needs that end users and your actual users will have. So we call them jobs to be done. The framework turns into assessments. These are personalized questionnaires that get sent to exec buyers, champions, and end users prior to a key point in the customer journey, onboarding, EBR, QBR, or check-in, and prior to renewal. We also have customers, and Rohirrim has used it in this capacity as well, which is to help convert new pilots, right? And if you're running pilots with large entities, it's imperative to measure value pre-pilot to get a sense of what your current state's like, and then post-pilot to show the impact and the effect of your solution on the customer. The number one question is, hey, do people actually engage with these assessments? Answer is resounding yes. We have a 70% on average response rate. I think you all have a higher one. It's probably closer to 80%.
I think ours is probably closer to 80% or 85%.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So the other thing here is it's not an email, right? Emails are fine, but the assessment's not an email. The assessment is a real interactive process. It doesn't take very long, but what I found is once people jump into it, they see it, it's actually like a lot more interesting to participate in. And it's not so generic, like on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you like this? Like, if I have to do one more of those, like, give me a break. So yeah. I think that's a big hook here. When somebody sees it, you're like, oh, I haven't seen this before. It also, quite frankly, like, it looks really professional. Like, it doesn't look like amateur hour. It looks like these guys know what they're doing. This is a really well done, executed thing. It just gives credibility, frankly, to my team and to the product that we're doing this in a really professional way.
And I'd love for you to share what this represents and how the framework and the assessment ultimately led to this outcome.
This is one of those like show me, don't tell me scenarios. So this is an actual slide that we share with this particular customer every quarter. And so what we do is that before a customer, sometimes we've got to go through a pilot process. As I said, we're a brand new tool in a very expensive competitive market, right? We have to deliver early pilots with customers, or when they come on, as I said, even customers who sign up right away don't know what really good looks like yet. And so we actually have 2 versions of the assessment. We have what we call a benchmark version that asks customers the same question, but instead of asking about our tool, Rohirrim, we ask them about their existing tools. And the questions are, how important is this to you? And how effective is your current tool tech stack in doing this? And in this case, we came up, and that gives us like a baseline metric. And what you saw on the previous slide, the answers are qualitative. It's very effective. It's somewhat effective. It's neutral. And we take those qualitative responses and turn them into a number, right? So we can give them a hard response. We can do it at the user level. We can do it at the account level. Frankly, we can do it across our whole portfolio. But in this case, we're able to show them, here's where you started, right? Here's where you were before we got there. The sort of first column or second column over you see is we do a first sort of benchmark, or I'm sorry, a value assessment, which is asking about our tool then. Now that you've been trained, now that you've had some time to use our tool, how do you see your organization? How do you see yourself using this tool? And so they will go back and say, okay, what's the delta between where you started and where you are right now, right? And so the real value of the value assessment is that it's not a one and done thing, right? The purpose is to do it over time. So we do it before they start with us. We do it right after they're trained and they understand they see the potential of the tool. They see the power of the tool. Then we go back 3 months later. There's an adoption period. We know that, right? And we expect that. We talk to customers about that. So we can see an improved value attainment over time. And then the dotted lines here, we're not done with where we are, we always give our customers a goal and our executive buyers a goal. Here is where you are, but we expect to be here over time. We're not done. We're not going anywhere. We want to make sure that we're putting together a success plan that allows you to hit another level of achievement. That's really valuable. The horizontal line here is the sort of average score across all of our customers. Anybody ever talk to their customers and it's like, do you want to know how well you're doing at your peers? It's what everybody wants to know, right? Okay, stack rank me against everybody else, right? It's like, that's the hook. Tell me where I am relative to everybody else. This gives us a good benchmark of that. Right, we weren't, they were below the average early on. That's fine. We expect that. And that first session, great. We also sort of expect that they haven't been using the tool as long as other has, but they're close to it. Now you're above it. Great. Who wants to stop once you're beating everybody else? Nobody. Let's keep going, right? And so I just sort of walked through this, but I think anybody could just look at this slide and just instantly kind of understand what we're talking about. And that's the value. I don't have to sit in a QBR and talk at people, right? And the easy thing is this is slide number 1 in our executive business review, right? And what we say is, so what we're going to talk about today, the dotted line part, that's what we're going to hear talk about.
That's awesome. And that's where the success comes.
What do you think? All right. What are the other things that you want to see us focus on to get us there? Suddenly it starts a discussion. This whole thing creates a discussion.
Yes. And we actually have a comment that has come in from LinkedIn here I want to show on the screen. So Kate has asked, what has it been like for your customers going through the value review the second time around? Mm-hmm. Great question.
Yeah. So what we're finding now is when getting the executive buyer bought in early on is really important. It's actually something that I ask right after we sign the deal. I've got a call with all of our executive buyers, and my ask of them, we pitch this in the sales cycle. We tell them we have these metrics and we track them. It's one thing if I ask for it. It's another thing if the executive buyer asks their team for it. So my ask of them, my only ask of the executive buyer right out of the gate is, will you commit to getting every single one of your users to respond to this? And they all say yes, right? And we end up with 80 to 90% user response, because if the executive buyer sends it out, they're a whole lot more likely to respond. But then the executive buyer wants to see it. And so what we found is that we get executive buyers calling us saying, hey, when are we going to see these again? I want to see this metric again, which is terrific.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right. And so that's, again, I don't have to pull teeth to get it. And it's not always straight up. It's sometimes we kind of stall a little bit, and that happens.
Yeah.
It's okay. And what it gives us is an early kind of course correction signal. We're 3 months in, maybe the benchmark to this doesn't go straight up. Okay. So let's talk about that. Let's see where it is. That's okay. I'd rather know early on anyway.
Yeah.
Then we can address it. So again, it just gives us proof points. And so the answer to that question is our buyers have been pretty receptive to this. We're usually, once they see it, getting a second or third one, they just want to see it. And this becomes our cadence, right? And they want to jump on because they don't have this data in the tool. They don't have access to this. So this is something they cannot get on their own. And this is their users' data. It's not someone I'm pulling. It's not my perspective. I'm not spinning this.
Yeah.
So it's their team.
Real objective.
It's their team, right? It's their team. It's their responses. It's their numbers. All I'm doing is giving them back their own numbers. And this is just sort of distilling down to the next level what we showed you in the previous slide. And so those 3 sort of bars, accessing firm knowledge, drafting proposals, proposal management, those are effectively 3 of sort of our primary outcomes, right? And there's things within that, but of the 11 questions or use cases that we have for our customers, they break down into one of those 3 categories. So this is our ability to go back to your customer and saying, okay, there are 3 primary outcomes that we all agree are really critical here, right? Those 3 pieces. And then we can say, great, when you started, you were negative, you were 21 points behind the average. Where you are now, you're 9 points ahead. And where we're going to go is 20 points beyond that, right? So, and you can see even going from that top on the negative 21 to plus 20, you've got this massive 41 point swing, right? And so we're delivering a very specific value increase, right? Now, what is negative 20 versus 40, but it kind of doesn't matter because it's all taking customer responses, turning them into numbers, and then playing them back to the customer, right? And so we're able to say here, in each of the critical areas that you bought our tool for, your team is improving in their use of it. They're above the average of all of our other customers who more or less look like you. And there's way more you can do here. Yeah. Right. And that's a really big deal. I mean, just look at this again. I don't have to talk so much about this, right? Like, it's clear where they are and yet where we're going to go.
Connecting product usage data and value, right? And so this is from our point of view, the number one proxy for value, which is not a real indicator of value, is product usage, right? People have this idea that, hey, more logins, more monthly active users, more value. But that's not necessarily the case. And what we're showing here is actual user data, which is all anonymized, of course, but comparing their login counts with their perception of value. And so the first three columns is data from the solution. The second two columns is data from Foresight around importance and effectiveness.
Yeah, this is actually something that the executive buyers love, because we go back to that first slide. We talk about how we need to get from here to there, right? What this really shows us is a success path for each user, right? And we've been here between 10 and sometimes there's hundreds of users in there. But what we can really see here is who are the users that we actually might want to focus on? And are there role identifications in there? Like, hey, sometimes the folks in red, we expect them to be in red. That's okay. No big deal, right? Sometimes, we see some really unexpected things, like people who we really didn't think were going to, they had more of sort of an ancillary participation in the function that they're in the tool. They love it, and they're finding new uses for it, and that's really unexpected, right? So that helps us basically look at expansion opportunities. Oh, this gives us the ability to create a success plan, not at the account level. We can do it at the individual level. And then it helps managers, directors get a lot more involved in this, and it gives them a level of granularity that they really like to see. So it helps take that executive buyer conversation and sometimes bring it down a little bit and make it even a little more tactical. So we can say, great, next week we're going to talk to these 4 people. Let's do some more training here, or let's bring them in to see why, what they're doing is great. Let's have them talk to other people. Again, this is just a conversation. It's way better than just looking at logging. Logging count doesn't tell me, right?
You got to contextualize it.
Yeah, you put both those things together, and suddenly it's an altogether different conversation. And then this is what executive buyers want to see. I was on a call yesterday morning with an executive buyer, and we were going through this. He said, okay, talk to him. He said, okay, but next time we do this, I want those 4 people to be up and green, right? So he said, next time we do this, right? And they wanted to see those people, so they were invested in the goal.
Yeah.
Right? And then they told their people to go do it. So suddenly we have alignment between the executive buyer and us getting the kind of that mid-level group of folks, really doing it.
Something that we've been working on with our top customers is actually taking all of the data from individual customers and bubbling it up into what we call the solution effect. In this case, Rohan effect, right? If you look at the last column here, Rohan's the product. What impact is Rohan having on customers? Like, how well is it improving their key needs? And so what we'll read for this table, and then Andrew, I want to get your commentary on this, is we've anonymized the use cases. So all of Rohan's use cases on the left. Foresight was able to get a benchmark of when a new client signs on, what are they reporting, right? How well is that need going with their incumbent solution or with Excel or whatever it might be? So that's column 2. And then column 3 is after they've used the solution for 3 to 6 months, what are they reporting there? And then ultimately the delta is the last column. So,
we talk so much about the value of Foresight to kind of the customer success team, that this is where the information is really validating to our product and engineering team. Like, our product team loves this, right? Because in an early company, we're able to articulate what within our tool, right? There's a lot of pieces in there where customers see value, and potentially where is the biggest opportunity for us to pull that up. Really, it's validating in some way, but gives us real strategic direction, right? And this is aggregated across all of our customers, right? So we can look at it at a different level. It also allows us, right, I presented this to our board last week, like I show health regularly. That doesn't drive a lot of conversation. This drives conversation.